Welcome to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables, and whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a café au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 212th episode of the Simple Sophisticate. Today we're going to talk about the 6 pillars of good health. But before we dive into something that you may be saying to yourself, I already know these, Shannon, you don't have to dive into them. Just wait, I'll explain to you why I wanted to dive into this today. Before I get to today's topic, today's petit plaisir is a film that is absolutely worth checking out. And if the word documentary is something that you shy away from, this is a film you're going to want to reconsider, even though it is a documentary. It has become a blockbuster in many ways for this particular genre. And I think, especially as a woman, but even for anyone who appreciates equality, you're going to want to watch this film. So stay tuned and I'll tell you all about it at the end of today's episode. Now, before I dive in, I want to talk about something that's going to be happening in 2 days, and I'm so excited. It's been 4 years, 2 years of writing with regards to the book itself, 1 year of editing, 4 years, as I said, of gathering the information. And finally, in 2 days, on Wednesday, June 13th of this year, 2018, the second book that has been inspired by the blog and the podcast, the Simply Luxurious Life brand, is going to be available for pre-ordering. The title will be shared, the book cover will be shared, the description, and so much more, as well as the opportunity for you to order a signed copy that's going to come with a bunch of other extras, exclusive discounts, a simple luxurious gift. I just cannot wait to share it with you. So I was going to wait till the end to talk about this, but I could not hold that in. So just be sure to stop by the blog if you're interested in this second book that is going to, and here's a hint, help you curate your best life. So I'll stop talking about that. That's Wednesday, June 13th on the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com. You're going to want to stop by and check it all out. But let's get to today's topic, the 6 pillars of good health. Lessons learned and applied. Often it is what we have done in the past that informs us about how to do a similar task better in the future. Whether the mistakes were large or small, upon reflection, we can be reminded of what didn't work. Then examine more closely why it didn't work, and then figure out, therefore, how to improve in those areas as we move forward and attempt something that either is exactly the same thing or something that's similar. Tending to our health falls into this type of life journey because it is a journey of discovery, of trial, of success, of I wish I knew then what I know now kind of concept. And because we are creatures of biology, our bodies and our minds are changing constantly, thus requiring each of us to remain a student of our health. Recently, I was reminded upon reflection why certain tasks and situations had gone well as of late and why others had not. But it wasn't until a guide in my own life, which in this case was my counselor, who I see from time to time to check in and to just kind of have that mind massage, as someone described to me, which is the perfect description. She brought something to my attention. Immediately, I recognized what she was pointing out, and I knew then how to fix it. And the frustrating but truly fortunate thing about this realization that she brought to my attention was that I had the knowledge already to address it. I just didn't recognize that that was going on. And then when she did do that for me, I was reminded that I needed to apply what I knew, and I could move forward in a positive direction. Similarly, today I'd like to talk about the 6 pillars of good health, of mind, body, and of each of our unique spirits. And while the list may be something you recognize, if you're like me, there may be a moment as you are journeying in your life when you need to be nudged to take a quick self-check to see if each pillar is functioning properly. So let's get right into these 6 pillars. Number 1, exercise. Just as our overall health has pillars, so too does an effective exercise program. And in this case, the physical health pillars are 3. There's the aerobic, the strength, and the flexibility. While the amount of days per week and even the amount of time each week we exercise will vary from expert to expert, what they do have in common is insisting that it is a regular program that we follow and is at least moderately challenging. In episode 201, I detailed my approach to tailoring the strength program that worked for me. And in another post a few years ago, I shared a detailed list of how to get and stay in shape. I also talk about that in my first book, Choosing a Simply Luxurious Life, A Modern Woman's Guide. But the flexibility aspect is often that 3rd pillar of physical health that is forgotten about. And as someone who myself, for a period of time in my 20s, neglected this 3rd detail, it's one that I quickly learned was, I think, the most enjoyable because it often takes less time and effort as well that's required. Now, this is not to say, because I do love my yoga for this flexibility component, it's not to say that a yoga class can't be challenging. Oh my gosh, they are. But often that part of yoga is the aerobic part, the strengthening part as well. Yoga really does do all 3 of these things for us. The flexibility part alone, isolated by itself, is actually very refreshing and enjoyable. And it really doesn't have to take that much time. And now you may not like yoga, and that's fine. You may prefer Pilates, but maybe you don't like either of those, and that's okay too. You can just simply create a flexibility program of a list of stretches that you do a couple times a week. I've actually included a link to a list that Self Magazine shares, and it's their 21 best stretching exercises. And you can just do that right at your own home to make sure that your fitness routine, your exercise regimen has a flexibility component. So that's the first pillar, not necessarily the most important. All of these are important in order for this whole concept to work well. But number 1 is exercise. And I'll also include a link to episode 190, where we kicked off 2018 talking about how to get and stay fit, but keep it simple and therefore enjoyable, but effective. So that's number 1. Number 2, nutrition. As we settle into the 21st century, as a population, we are becoming more aware of how food works or does not work well in our bodies. The subsequent locally sourced restaurants that are now on the rise around the country are challenging long-loved food chains to step up their game. At home, we too have more choices and more information to enable us to eat well each night of the week, all the while amping up the flavor. Such a topic is something that we've talked about quite a bit here on the podcast as well as the blog. And in September of this year, many of you already know that we're going to be launching a Simply Luxurious Life Kitchen, which is a vodcast dedicated to sharing how to eat well while incorporating seasonal fare. So this isn't a big surprise that we're seeing this shift in knowledge and in how and what we can eat as far as it being more readily available. However, it's important to remember to listen to our bodies, be kind to our bodies, and enjoy exploring with new flavors, as well as becoming aware when our minds and bodies have become accustomed to something such as, say, sugar that isn't serving us well. So what I've done, I've included 3 episodes or posts from the archives that talk about this exact topic. I have one that talks about how to feed your body well, and it goes into detail about the types of foods and what they do. I've also included episode 8, which is focused on how to love food, but also love your body, and therefore choosing the right food to do that. And the third is, how do you treat your body like a temple? We break all of that down depending on what you're interested in. So the second pillar of good health is nutrition. Number 3 is sleep. A few weeks ago in the Simply Luxurious Life's weekly newsletter that went out to subscribers, in my letter from the editor, I shared that I was reading or rereading, as the case was, Arianna Huffington's book, The Sleep Revolution. And I specifically focused on chapter 7 because it focuses on mastering your sleep. In 2013, I shared 9 benefits of enjoying a good night's sleep regularly. Because aside from being absolutely pleasure-filled, it is the cheapest preventative medicine we can take to improve the quality of our lives. And it is absolutely a necessary pillar of good health. So that's number 3, sleep. Number 4, skincare. Often our skin, once we've moved through puberty, is a mirror of the quality of our overall health. It reveals if the body needs more hydration, more rest, less alcohol, or anything else. These are just a few of the telltale signs of how we live our lives. Look at someone's face. Look at our own face in a mirror. Look closely. On the flip side, it also demonstrates to the world when these factors are balanced and tended to well, such as, oh, you've had a good night's sleep, or you've been protecting your skin from the sun, or you have hydrated well, and your diet, it's balanced. I have included 2 links to posts or episodes that dive deeper into creating a skincare routine that works and enables your best health to shine. And while these do talk about products as well, it also talks about hydration through water and drinking enough water and the exercise and the sleep. And so you're going to see a lot of these different pillars popping up again because they're all intertwined. So I've included episode 13, which focused specifically on 8 ways to create glowing skin. And because I must like the number 8, my second episode or post that I'm going to include are the 8 products that I love and use in my daily skincare routine. And I break down as to why I love those products as well. And so that's in the show notes, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 212. All right. So the 4th pillar is skincare. The 5th pillar are our social connections. Our relationships do not need to be many, but we do need to have them, and they need to be healthy. Depending upon your temperament, and when I say temperament, I mean things you cannot change within yourself. Personality is something that does change and can change depending on our life experience and the people we're around and how we've lived and gone through life. But temperament is something that it's innate. Temperament is something you can't shift. You can definitely adapt your personality to fit the situation, but temperament is something that's innate to you. You may have, because of your temperament, you may have a multitude of friendships, familiar relationships, and connections you tend to in your career network that with each one strengthen your overall health. For others, it may be fewer, but each one of those relationships is deep and intimate. Whatever your preference, whatever works for the quality of life you need to be your best self, having a strong and healthy social life is fundamental for an overall good life. In episode 92, the concept of a strong social well-being was discussed in detail, and I'll provide a link to that episode on the show notes. I encourage you to listen or read it as it simplifies our social life into 3 compartments: the relationship we have with ourselves, the platonic relationships we have with others, whether in our personal or professional life, and our romantic partnership. All 3 of these relationships are unique, but they each involve similarities that we see in all the others. So we're going to see overlap, but they're also going to see distinctions as well. So that's number 5. We want to focus on building our social connections for good health. And last but not least, number 6 is mental strength and agility. All 5 of the pillars that we've talked about so far are essential. But without an awareness of how our mind works and how to ensure we are exercising it so that it works for us, not against us, we must keep our mind healthy. In episode number 20, so a couple years ago, How to Master Your Mind is explored in detail as 10 specific ways to do so were shared. From becoming fluent with your emotions to understanding what you initially believed about what goes through your mind and the reality of what is going on, to recognizing that the mind is a muscle, and in order for it to function optimally, we must exercise it regularly. So number 6, our final pillar is mental strength and agility. Most likely, some, if not all, of the pillars of good health that we talked about today are already known to you. But as I was reminded last week, in that instance with my counselor, sometimes when our life is becoming frustrating in one arena, it can affect other arenas unconsciously. And sometimes all it will take to get back on track for our overall health is to take a moment and check each of these 6 pillars. How are they working? Have each of them been tended to recently and regularly? Perhaps today's episode will be that reminder to check, readjust if necessary, or applaud yourself for how well you are doing and reward yourself. As the French say, à votre santé, to your health. May we embrace what is fully in our control and enable it to elevate the quality of our lives. All right, so those are the 6 pillars of good health. And if you want to dive further into this topic, beyond just the other links that I mentioned throughout those 6 pillars, I've also included 3 other episodes or podcasts about how to build or create an all-around healthy life, as well as how to live a long, healthy life, and just a post about 10 simple ways to live healthier. So that's all on the show notes, the simplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 212. And I will be right back with this week's Petit Plaisir. All right, welcome back. This week's Petit Plaisir is a documentary focused on Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Now, at the age of 85, she has become a cultural, I want to say, figure beyond the court. This is not something that we've actually seen with any other justice, so it's very unique in that way. She has been serving since the early 90s, and what this trailer does is focus not only on her career right now, and actually far less about her career right now, but about how she got to where she is right now. What was her path? What was her journey? And it predominantly focuses on, and this is what I loved about it, what her role is. It's actually very apolitical, and we forget that when we think about our justices, because what they're doing is interpreting the Constitution of the United States. They have to have evidence for what they cite. They cannot just pull in their personal ideologies. Now, how they interpret it, yes, is going to be unique. But a funny fact, there are different justices that have been chosen by particular ideologically left or ideologically right presidents that have actually tended to side on the other side of the aisle with regards to interpretation of a particular law than the person who put them in that job. I think that's important to keep in mind, and evidence to the fact that our justices are apolitical. All right, this film, what I loved about it, which there is much, it came out early May of this year, but there's a realization for all, as I mentioned at the top of this podcast, for a lot of women in our country, but also, as I said, anyone who just simply wants equality in our country, men and women, that Ruth has been a crucial part of. And yes, she in her early career was a lawyer. In fact, she was a lawyer, and in New York, she was turned away for being a woman because they didn't hire women who were going to be lawyers, because they were afraid that women would leave if or when they had children and not be able to be a full contributor to that particular firm, as the case may be. This inspired her, along with many other things that were going on in the mid-20th century, to fight for women to be able to participate in their lives in a manner that didn't depend upon the fact that they were women. And so prior to her becoming a Supreme Court justice, as the film will show, it wasn't just women she was fighting for as clients. She fought for men too. There was a case that occurred where a widower had a young son, and as his wife had passed away, the law was denying him the ability to acquire his wife's Social Security because he was a widower, not a widow. She fought that case and won, so that regardless of one's sex, equal protection and rights are given to anyone. So have a listen to the trailer. I think simply the voiceover will express what the film is going to focus on. If you have by chance read the book that came out in 2015, Notorious RBG, The Life and Times of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, this book pulls from that. This documentary pulls heavily from that research as well, but it puts it into film form and adds an abundance of information that deepens the examination of who she is and how she got to where she is now. So here's a listen to the trailer.
I ask no favor for my sex. All I ask of our brethren is that they take their feet off our necks.
We welcome today Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
She's become such an icon.
Do you mind signing this copy?
I am 84 years old, and everyone wants to take a picture with me.
Notorious RBG. Yeah.
When you come right down to it, the closest thing to a superhero I know.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg changed the way the world is for American women.
I became a lawyer when women were not wanted by the legal profession.
Thousands of state and federal laws discriminated on the basis of gender. She was following in the footsteps of the battle for racial equality. She wanted equal protection for women.
Men and women are persons of equal dignity, and they should count equally before the law.
She captured for the male members of the court what it was like to be a second-class citizen.
The point is that the discriminatory line almost inevitably hurts women.
I did see myself as kind of a kindergarten teacher in those days because the judges didn't think sex discrimination existed.
I have had the great good fortune to share life with a partner truly extraordinary for his generation.
He was the first boy I ever knew who cared that I had a brain.
She is a center of power on and off the court.
Every time Justice Ginsburg wrote a dissent, the internet would explode.
I came up with a couple slogans. You can't spell truth without Ruth.
I surely would not be in this room today without the determined efforts of men and women who kept dreams alive.
I've heard that she does 20 push-ups 3 times a week or something. I mean, we can't even get off the floor. We can't even get down to the floor.
That's true.
So as you can see, that it probably explained it far better than I did prior to the film. But the film is out in independent theaters right now, and also other select theaters. I saw it at our small theater just outside of Ben and Sisters, and it's still playing. So look for it. If not, I'm sure in a few months it will be available on other streaming services. But the film is just simply titled RBG. And I'll provide a link to the film's homepage on the show notes, the simplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast2112. I hope you've enjoyed today's Petit Plaisir, where each week ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each Monday's podcast, where I'll recommend a book, a film, or a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I look forward to being back next Monday. Have a beautiful week. Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, stop by the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com, or pick up the book, Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, A Modern Woman's Guide, now available in paperback as well as ebook and audio versions, which are available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon. And to receive exclusive news as well as an extra dose of inspiration to jumpstart your weekend, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Life's weekly newsletter, which arrives in your inbox each Friday to enjoy with a hot cup of tea or a morning cup of coffee. Until next Monday, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Bonne journée.